In the distance, an inferno that a local fire chief has described as an uncontrollable firestorm. In this unprecedented year, France will be burning for a while yet.
Has died here, found in his car. People will be forced to flee at the mercy of the blaze. Kieran Fitzpatrick, ITV News.
Well, hello there, and thank you very much for clicking on this video today. So today we are doing a video about how the world is burning in a quite literal sense, and this has been caused by the world warming up and climate change and the effects of climate change, and how not only tragic are these series of wildfires which are happening in Canada, which are happening in the Camels in the UK, which are happening in France, which are also happening in Spain, how extreme heat is affecting people in Japan, how camels in Africa are dying from heat exhaustion because it's getting so hot there they can't cope. And you would hope that most people, pretty much everyone, would recognise this, but unfortunately when you look at the reporting of this, it kind of falls down political lines in so much that more kind of left-leaning outlets tend to report the issue of climate change. But when you look at kind of more centrist and right-wing ones, they completely ignore it, as though it's not the issue that's happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the details of how the world is being affected by this, or how the world has been affected by these fires and what's happening. So this is coming from a variety of different sources, so Independent, The Guardian, there's some stuff from the BBC here as well, all sorts. So let's go have a look at my notes. So, the authorities in France are battling to contain a huge wildfire near Bordeaux, in the southwest, as Spain's Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, warned that Spain and the Iberian Peninsula were suffering the effects of the climate emergency. Efforts to extinguish the blaze in the Gironde region, I hope I pronounced that right, of France, which has consumed an area 4 times the size of Paris and has caused nearly 220,000 people to be evacuated, has been hampered by windy conditions. So, to look at Spain, in Spain, fires west of Madrid were being brought under control, but the wildfires have forced approximately 375,000 people to flee their homes in both France and Spain. In France, nearly 260,000 have been forced to flee, while in neighbouring Spain, 116,000 have been evacuated over this week. So the mayor of Bordeaux described the blaze as being at the gates of the metropolitan area, between 15 to 20 miles from the city itself, which has a population of 268,000 people. An evacuation is not on the cards, he said, but you can see how these fires are spreading from these rural regions and are getting very close to major population areas. So nearly 260,000 people have been evacuated across France as a whole, including some 36,000 ordered to leave another wildfire zone in the Landes region farther south earlier this week. So Sophie Brocas, the prefect of Nouvelle-Aquitaine region, which includes Gironde, said that the highly unpredictable nature of this wildfire was a phenomenon never seen in France before, and said, "I urge tourists not to come to this area as long as the fire has not been contained. I invite tourists who are already here to think about going to another destination. We don't know where this fire is going to go." France's Interior Minister said on Sunday that the previous nights had been difficult and that the situation remains very unfavourable. He said the fire had become extremely virulent and unpredictable on Saturday night, generating its own wind and spreading erratically across the Bordeaux metropolitan area, though it had become calmer by the end of the night. And since Wednesday, the fire has injured 75 firefighters, 10 of whom have had to be evacuated, according to the latest situation report published on Sunday by the prefecture. So Sébastien Bouvert, the Federal Secretary of France's CFDT union, said firefighters did not have adequate equipment to protect themselves from the fire's toxic fumes. And this is the thing. The firefighters are doing their best, but they can only do so much, whether it be firefighters in France or Spain or the UK or Canada or wherever they are. You know, previously, prior to this climate emergency, this kind of thing is really not something they would often do. I mean, these kind of wildfires do happen from time to time, but we've gotten to the point where in Europe, in America, and places like Australia as well, or in South America, we seem to be getting these wildfires every year. They're common now at this point, which has changed. In my lifetime, this has changed. This was not the case 10, 15 years ago at all. And so about 250,000 firefighters, including a Swiss team, 1,500 military personnel, and about 1,200 police have also been deployed. Nunes has said, as he praised the contribution of 450 volunteers from civil security organizations. So, one firefighter who has spoken out about this told Agency France Press that the fire had formed, I can't pronounce this, but basically the fire has formed a fire-generated thunderstorm that creates its own wind, with whirlwinds becoming erratic and uncontrollable. So the fire is so massive now that it's creating its own atmospheric conditions, which is driving it. And a spokesperson for the National Firefighters Federation of France said that while no wildfire-prone areas like Australia or Canada are more used to this, one had never been seen before in France. The Federation's Lieutenant Colonel Eric Bocardi told the AFP there was a need to understand the natural force beyond our control. He said it's a David versus Goliath scenario. The idea is that at some point we'll find a weak point and strike it. So, authorities going into Spain now, authorities in Spain said major areas of fire near Madrid had been contained and cooled down, according to a senior officer with Spain's military emergencies unit. We're facing some difficult hours, although it is true that the last update has shown that last night was very positive in terms of the fire's evolution and efforts to control it. Speaking at an advanced firefighters command post west of Madrid, the Prime Minister of Spain warned that Spain and Portugal were experiencing the very consequences of climate emergency. Well, it's good at least that the Prime Minister of Spain is saying this. From fires and storms to heavy snowfalls, the entire Iberian Peninsula is suffering the effects of climate emergency in a very specific way. So while the fire near Madrid was being brought under control, emergency workers battled to extinguish a new fire near the Mediterranean port city of Valencia, where at least 15,000 people were evacuated. The fire is beyond our capacity to extinguish it. It has a parameter of about 21 kilometers, the Valencia region's president said on Saturday, and the Spanish Interior Ministry said on Saturday evening that a man had died in a fire in a town in Valencia. He had been found in his car in a ravine. And authorities also ordered the evacuation of 8 more municipalities near Toledo, south of Madrid, on Saturday, bringing the number of people forced to flee their homes by wildfires in Spain in recent days to 116,000 people, the Associated Press has reported. Spain's Environment Minister said that the wildfire has burned through 50,000 hectares of land in the central province of Avila, which was the largest forest fire in our country's recent history. The blazes are the latest episode in a summer of wildfires that have threatened to burn through an unprecedented amount of land. This breaks all records, and Europe has endured a series of heat waves since the spring, which has been fueled by the climate crisis, including the hottest ever June, leaving vegetation tinder dry. And the EU's Commissioner for Crisis Management told the BBC it was likely that damage from the wildfires would exceed previous records, saying last year 1 million hectares burned during the summer, and so we're expecting to face another historic, sad record because this season has started earlier in the year. And Spain's Environment Ministry said 32 major fires affecting 152,000 hectares, 377 acres, have been recorded so far in 2026, compared with 7 affecting 24,000 hectares in the same period in 2025. And the fire in France has so far burned through 42,000 hectares, an area 4 times the size of Paris, and one of the biggest devastations of the land since the Second World War. At least 240 homes have been destroyed, many more damaged. And just to add something more to this, firefighters are battling to slow the fire's progression towards Bordeaux from the ground and the air, with planes dropping water and retardants. Jerome Steff, the mayor of Kestis commune, said, 10 miles away from the Bordeaux city centre. So that's what's going on there, and we can see how these wildfires in France and Spain are just devastating, and it is unprecedented. Europe has not faced anything like this for a very long time, and so to kind of demonstrate how this is not just a European problem, but it's a problem that is affecting the whole world, we're going to jump away to Japan, and about how Japan records its first, what they call, cruelly hot day, which I think is a great way to describe it personally. So, Japan has logged its first official kokushobi, or a cruelly hot day, on Tuesday since a new term for when temperatures top 40 degrees Celsius was introduced in April. The Japan Meteorological Agency coined a new designation to warn the public of the dangers of heat on days to warn the public of heat dangers of days that were once freak weather events but now become more common. So, central city areas of Japan, like Gujo, Demiji, and Gifu Prefecture, along with Toyota in Aichi Prefecture, all hit 40 Celsius. And these are record all-time highs recorded by their respective weather stations. And across 914 weather stations across the country, 278 registered temperatures exceeding 35 C, which they call extremely hot days, the highest level of warning until the recent introduction of new terminology. So they've had to basically introduce new terminology for the extreme heat that they're also experiencing. So on Monday, a man in his 40s was found dead on the street in Sanjo in Niigata Prefecture, while another man in his 70s died in Kanagawa, southwest of Tokyo. Both are believed to have succumbed to the heat. Heat stroke deaths topped 2,000 for the first time in 2024, while more than 100,000 people were taken to hospital last year between the beginning of May and late September, according to the Fire and Disaster Management Agency. The rising heat is affecting many aspects of ordinary life, including the yields and the quality of the rice, which is a staple in Japan and across most of Asia as well. In response, farmers are planting more heat-tolerant varieties, while some are just switching to different crops like avocado. And the impact has also been felt on sport, with most high profile being the restructuring of the highly popular National High School Baseball Tournament. Played in the sweltering heat of August, games have been split into morning and evening sessions since 2024 to reduce the chances of heat stroke for both players and spectators. And meanwhile, office workers are being encouraged to wear shorts on hot summer days, the latest relaxing of Japan's button-down corporate culture, part of what they call cool biz, measures to reduce electricity consumption through the lower use of air conditioning. Previous initiatives have encouraged salarymen to shed their jackets and ties and wear short-sleeved shirts, but this year's expected scorching summer has prompted calls for another level of casualness. And the government of Tokyo announced the new clothing recommendations for office wear, which include polo shirts, t-shirts and trainers where appropriate, against the backdrop of expected high temperatures and a challenging outlook for electrical supply. So it's getting so hot that not only are people being told dress down, wear as least as you possibly can, but also there is an issue of electricity supply. The heat is becoming so much that people obviously turn on the air conditioning, which creates a huge electrical demand. And we're seeing that across the world where we're experiencing this increasing heat. It's not just causing all these environmental issues and health issues, it's creating a huge demand for electricity, which previously did not exist. We won't be needing winter fuel allowances if it continues like this, we'll be needing allowances for summer heat, essentially. So to add to this, a study by the National Institute for Environmental Sciences and Tokyo's Waseda University in 2025 found that without drastic cuts to greenhouse gas emissions, school sports will just become unplayable outdoors by 2060. Sorry. So to give a bit more context to this, the average summer temperatures in Japan have risen by 1.3 C over the past 100 years, according to the Japan Meteorological Agency. Both in 2023 and 2024 were the hottest years since records began in 1898. But last year, those levels surpassed again. The summer of 2025 was 2.4 C above the average of the previous 3 decades, with 132 weather stations logging their highest ever average heat, and a new all-time Japanese record of 41.8 C at Isaki Gumana, north of Tokyo, on the 5th of August. So we can see the extreme heat affecting Europe and Japan, and now we're going over to Africa, where basically even camels are essentially dying from this extreme heat. So this is coming from the BBC. So, as we know, camels are famously known as the ships of the deserts. They are used to transport things across the deserts. They are also used for things like their milk. They're very handy animals. But even these hardy animals have not been spared from the extreme streams of rising temperatures in Africa. So the Afar region of northeastern Ethiopia is one of the hottest and driest places on the planet, where nomads often lead camel caravans carrying salt through the desert. So let's go to what some of the people have been saying. So, I can see my camels suffering from extreme heat. Ali Uma, a camel herder from Samara in Afar, said. They get blisters on their feet, their eyes become watery, and the hot sand burns their skin and eats up their hair when they are sitting, said the 40-year-old, who owns around about 500 camels. Within the past month, I've lost 8 camel calves because of the extreme heat has become much more intense and difficult. Even the wind, which used to bring cool air, now carries heat, he said, adding that he had noticed these drastic changes in temperature in recent years. He is not alone in his observation. Scientists, animal welfare workers, and various studies all mention stress, fatigue, dehydration, disease prevalence as direct impacts of extreme heat. The higher temperatures also indirectly makes camels suffer by causing severe loss of water, vegetation, and reduced shaded areas. So, North Africa and the Horn of Africa host around 80% of the world's largest populations of camels. These are the ones with the humps. So over the years, farmers and cattle herders in this region have switched to these animals because of their resilience to heat and drought conditions. But a study based on the perception of camel herders in southern Ethiopia, published in 2025, showed that higher temperatures and climate variability had a detrimental impact on camel herd health. Respondents reported that climate change and the variability have affected the camel's health, productivity, and reproductive performance, it said. In neighbouring Somalia, the situation has become much more devastating. Research published in June has shown that the drought-related camel mortality is a widespread crisis, affecting 46% of camel-owning households. The study included more than 6,000 pastoral households and showed that the mortality was concentrated in northern regions, with Seoul reporting a staggering mortality rate of nearly 73%. So extreme heat is a main cause behind the drought in the region, although other factors like inadequate veterinary service and animal management are making things worse, experts say. An analysis by atmospheric scientists found that the high temperatures in the region were behind the 2021 to 2022 drought, as extreme heat makes water from soil and water bodies turn into vapor, and plants release water into air vapor. Veterinarians said that they are treating more sick camels and are seeing more deaths due to extreme heat and drought. We are seeing significant increases in cases of hypothermia in camels as a result of which they get multiple infections. a veterinary officer told the BBC. In the last 2 years, we have seen a more than a 15% increase in camel deaths in our country due to extreme heat. Disease prevalence among camels and reduced milk yield from them are another result of climate change impacts, including heat stress, according to another study conducted in the Horn of Africa. A similar story is playing out in North Africa. A study in Algeria published this year has shown a significant increase in camel deaths during summer heat waves. Time series analysis highlights significant seasonal mortality patterns, underscoring the need for targeted interventions during high-risk periods like peak summer months, such as strategic water provisioning, supplemental feeding, and enhanced disease monitoring, it said. The World Meteorological Organization says extreme heat waves have become a common phenomenon in several North African countries, with heat waves having increased with a clear upward trend since 1981. It said a number of countries in the region and the Middle East reported temperatures above 50 Celsius in 2024. So the WMO's State of Climate in Africa 2025 report said that North Africa recorded the most rapid warming of the 6 subregions between 1991 and 2000 and 2025. Experts say camels comfortably beat heat up to around 40 Celsius, mainly by allowing their body temperature to fluctuate by several degrees throughout the day to deal with the outside temperature. By doing so, they avoid sweating, and combined with concentrated urine and dry feces, it helps them minimize water loss, while their thick coat helps them ward off solar radiation. But camels also experience heat stress when temperatures rise beyond their comfort range, said Dr. Mohamed Bougoumi, a scientist with the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization who specializes in camel health and works in Africa. In many parts of the Sahara, summer temperatures now frequently exceed 50 C, increasing the risk of severe heat stress, particularly when accompanied by reduced vegetation cover, water security, and limited access to shade, he said. So a professor at the University of Gadaria in Algeria, who has conducted similar experimental works on camels in the Sahara Desert, has a similar conclusion. Our work shows that prolonged day and night heat above 41 to 45 C directly attacks their cells, he said. Their immune system suffers because such heat levels damage their white blood cells and other blood cells because of the stress. They, the cells, struggle to repair themselves and end up destroying themselves. For camels, this means when heat stress sets in, their metabolism slows down to limit internal heat production, leading to a sharp reduction in food intake, resulting in lethargy and generalized fatigue. That leads to a drop in milk production, also causes reproductive disorders. So, to continue on with this, Professor Mohamed El Kashimi, the animal hydrobiology expert at the University of Casablanca in Morocco, has a long list of effects of heat stress he and his team have observed in camels. Weight loss, inflammation, muscle and bone-related illness, chemical imbalance due to kidney malfunction, infectious diseases caused by parasites were a few among them, he said. And while extreme heat is the primary culprit, its impact becomes severe when other factors like loss of vegetation and water and lack of shaded areas and inadequate veterinary services add up. This is why many herders in Ethiopia have moved their camels from the northern region, where animals were found historically, to the southern region where water and vegetation are relatively available. And this is not the seasonal movement of the herders, said Daniel Galen, the professor and pastoralist development researcher at Visions University in Ethiopia. They are leaving the northern region for good reason, because they can no longer sustain camel herding there because of the extreme heat and drought. The Horn of Africa has been recovering from the longest and most severe recorded droughts spanning from 2020 to 2023, but now it is seeing another round of harsh conditions, according to the charity organisation Oxfam. It is said that water prices in parts of Somalia has risen by 2,000% because of the droughts. So, there's a lot there, a lot to process, so let's all kind of try and summarise this all together. There is no excuse. If you see someone that is publicly denying climate change, give them a little kick, or disavow them in public, because we can see how climate change is not only heating up the planet, but it's also affecting the rain patterns. We're seeing not only these extended periods of extreme heat, but extended periods of extreme dryness. So the ground is just like dust, which means that it will set fire like no one's business. And so we're seeing the results of this, and people like firefighters just can't cope with this. There just isn't really the equipment that you can provide them to try and put out these fires quickly at all. It's just too much. And we're seeing how, in Japan it's causing challenges for electrical supply, how basically people are having to just throw away their clothes and basically wear very little to cope with the heat. And we're seeing how in Africa, camels, which are animals which have expressly evolved to cope with extreme heat, can no longer cope with this extreme heat. Camels are literally dying because it's too hot. That is where climate change is leading us. And if we don't go net zero, and if the world doesn't commit to this, this is only going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better. And this is going to cause not only issues with the land being burnt, with people's livelihoods being destroyed, but it's also going to lead to things like the mass movement of people, because these areas, especially areas in Africa and in other parts of the world which are just so dry, will become unlivable. They're already difficult places to live as they are, but if this continues, they'll just become unlivable. People just won't be able to live there anymore, and they'll move. And fair play to them. I would move myself if I was in their situation. These folk are not just going to sit there and go, oh well, the land is basically desert, all the animals have died, all the plants have died, there's no water, but I'll just sit there and die. No, they'll move to countries where it is less of a problem. So tackling this climate crisis is not just is in everyone's interest. Literally everyone is being affected by this. The mega rich, and the mega rich countries maybe not as much, but even them are being affected by it, and some of them are probably in denial, are too stupid, too arrogant, and are too wrapped up in their own prejudices and their own issues, and are wrapped up in things like science denial in general to see it. But this is only going to get worse, and it's coming. The effects are here, and they're coming. It's coming for all of us, and the best thing we can do is to fight it, and to fight it as hard as we can, and to try and reduce CO2 emissions as much as we can and as quickly as we can. Because look at what's happening. Whatever the consequences may be of going net zero cannot be as bad as what is already happening. So anyway, thank you for joining me on this little rant today, and I will catch you in the next video. So you know what, you have a good day whether you are. So bye bye.